That night as my son yelled those words, "Get out, Mom. Jenna doesn't want you here," in front of 200 guests, I understood that there are some things you never forget and never forgive. My name is Teresa Clark. I'm 57 years old, and this is the story of how a wedding destroyed a family, but also saved my soul. The ranch garden was perfect that evening. White flowers hung from every post and railing, their petals catching the last golden rays of sunset. The band had been playing since 6 o'clock, filling the warm October air with gentle music. Tables draped in linen cloths I'd embroidered myself during long sleepless nights, stood in neat rows across the lawn. Everything was exactly as we'd planned for months. My son Nathan was marrying Jenna, the sharp-eyed woman from New York who'd appeared 2 years ago and changed everything. I wore the royal blue dress my mother had worn at my own wedding 30 years before. I'd styled my hair in an elegant bun, put on the pearl earrings Robert gave me on our 10th anniversary. I wanted to look dignified, appropriate for the groom's mother. The keys to the ranch hung on a silver chain around my neck, hidden beneath the dress's high collar. They'd hung there every day since Robert died, warm against my skin like a promise. When I arrived at the reception, Jenna saw me immediately. She didn't say a word, just leaned close to Nathan and whispered something in his ear. Her red lips barely moved, but I saw the way her eyes narrowed. Nathan walked toward me with quick, rigid steps. His jaw was clenched tight, the same way it used to clench when he was a boy and knew he'd done something wrong but didn't want to admit it. I knew that look. I'd raised him. "Mom," he said, his voice low and controlled. "Jenna says your dress is stealing the spotlight, that the blue is too flashy." The words hit me like a physical blow, but I kept my face calm. I'd learned long ago not to show weakness. "It's fine, son. I brought another dress in the car. I can change if you want." "No, Mom." His voice turned harsh, unfamiliar. "It's better if you just leave." "What?" "Jenna's very nervous. She says your presence makes her tense, that you've always judged her." The hall was full of people, neighbors I'd known for decades, Robert's old friends, Nathan's college buddies. The music played on. Guests talked and laughed, oblivious to what was happening just 10 feet from the head table. "Nathan, I'm your mother. I organized half this wedding. I paid for— And you think that gives you the right to ruin my wife's day?" He was yelling now. The music seemed to stop, though maybe it was just that I couldn't hear it anymore. Every face in the garden turned toward us. Then he said it, loud and clear, making sure everyone could hear. "Get out, Mom. My fiancé doesn't want you here." Something broke inside me. Not my heart, that would come later. This was something deeper, something in the very foundation of who I thought I was. The mother of this man, the woman who'd raised him alone after his father died. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. I just nodded once, picked up my purse, and walked toward the exit. No one stopped me. No one followed me. Behind me, I heard the music start up again, louder this time, as if trying to cover the awkwardness, as if I'd never been there at all. My hands shook on the steering wheel as I drove the dark country roads back to the ranch. The headlights cut through the October darkness, illuminating the familiar curves and turns I could have driven blind. I'd driven this road 1,000 times, bringing Nathan home from baseball practice, rushing Robert to the hospital that last terrible week, returning alone after the funeral. In the rearview mirror, I caught a glimpse of the blue dress, my mother's dress. She'd been so beautiful in it, so full of hope on her wedding day. I wondered what she'd think of her grandson now. The memory came unbidden. Nathan at 12 years old, standing in the kitchen doorway 3 days after we buried his father. He'd been so small then, all gangly limbs and uncertain eyes. But his voice had been steady when he said, "Mom, I can fix the fence in the south pasture. Dad showed me how." "You're still a child, sweetheart. You don't have to." "I'm not a child anymore, Mom." He'd stood up straighter, trying to fill the space his father had left. "I'm the man of the house now." I'd cried then, though I'd tried to hide it. He was 12 years old and already trying to carry the weight of the world. The ranch house appeared at the end of the long gravel drive, its lights glowing warm and yellow against the night sky. 4 generations of Clarks had lived in this house. My great-grandfather built it with his own hands in 1903, using adobe and timber cut from the land itself. Every beam, every stone, every inch of worn floorboard held a memory. I pulled into the drive and sat for a moment, engine ticking as it cooled. Through the kitchen window, I could see the table where Nathan and I used to sit every morning, drinking coffee and planning the day's work. The porch where we'd watched 1,000 sunsets together. All of it felt empty now. I touched the keys beneath my dress. They were cold, despite having rested against my heart all evening. These keys, the ones my father had passed to me before he died, along with the land, the house, the legacy of 4 generations. The same keys Nathan had asked about more and more often since he'd gotten engaged to Jenna. I got out of the car and walked to the house, unlocked the door, stepped into the familiar darkness and flipped on the lights. The blue dress suddenly felt too tight. I went upstairs, took it off carefully, and folded it. My hands were gentle as I placed it back in the cedar chest where it had waited for 30 years. Maybe another generation would wear it someday. Maybe not. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the kitchen with cold coffee and tried to understand how I'd lost my son. The phone rang at 8 the next morning. Nathan's name lit up the screen. I stared at it for 3 rings before answering. "Mom?" His voice sounded tired, hollow. "Can you come to the ranch? We need to talk." For a moment, I almost said yes. Almost jumped in my car and drove wherever he was, grateful just to hear him speak to me again. That's what mothers do, isn't it? We forgive, we bend, we come running. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the keys, heavy against my chest. Maybe it was Robert's voice in my memory. "Don't let anyone make you feel less than you are. If you want to talk to me, Nathan, you know where I live." I hung up. My hand was shaking as I set down the phone, but I didn't call back. I made fresh coffee, the French roast Nathan loved, the kind I'd made him every morning when he was a teenager and would wake up early to help with the horses, back when it was just the 2 of us against the world. The phone rang again. This time I answered on the first ring. "Mom, please." His voice had changed, colder, more formal. "Jenna and I need the ranch keys." There it was. Not an apology, not an explanation for last night, just a demand. "What do you need them for, Nathan?" Silence on the other end. I heard voices in the background. Jenna's voice, high and insistent, though I couldn't make out the words. "Olivia and I want to make some changes," he said finally. "You know, modernize a little. Maybe remodel the main living room, update the old furniture. That old furniture was made by your great-grandfather with his own hands." "Mom, please don't start. Yesterday was enough drama." Drama. I felt my throat tighten. "You threw me out of your wedding and I'm the dramatic one?" "You decided to wear that dress knowing that—" "That was your grandmother's dress, Nathan. The same one she wore when she married your grandfather on this ranch. The ranch you now want to remodel." Another long silence. "Mom, things change. Traditions change. Jenna's right. We can't live in the past forever." Jenna's right. Those 3 words. I'd been hearing them for 2 years now, in 100 different conversations. Jenna's right about selling the cattle. Jenna's right about modernizing. Jenna's right about everything. "When are you coming home?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "That's the thing, Mom. Jenna and I aren't going to live at the ranch anymore. We're staying in the city apartment. It's more practical for her work." The kitchen suddenly felt too small. "But you told me you were going to raise your children here, that this was your home." "It is my home, but I need to build my own life now, with my wife." My wife. He said it like signing a contract. Cold, final. "Then why do you need the keys?" "Because legally, Mom, it's my house too. Dad left it to me in the will. 50% for you, 50% for me." There it was, the truth beneath all the talk of remodeling and modernizing. My husband had indeed left Nathan half the property. But the keys, the control, the administration, he'd left that to me. With a specific clause, Teresa will decide the future of the ranch as long as she has life and mental capacity. Nathan will only receive his share when she so determines. Robert had known. Somehow he'd known this day might come. The keys stay with me, Nathan. Mom, don't be childish. We just want to make a few improvements. Maybe rent the ranch out for events, weddings, parties. We could generate real income, turn it into a proper business. Jenna's already talked to an architect. No, but it's mine too. The yell came sudden and sharp, making me flinch. This wasn't the voice of my son. This was a stranger. Your father left you this land to protect it, I said quietly. Not to exploit it. My father is dead, Mom. He's been dead for 15 years, and you keep living like he's going to walk through that door tomorrow. The words cut deep, finding all the soft places where grief still lived. I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't mean... Yes, you did. My voice came out calmer than I felt. Too calm. And that's okay. You're right. Your father is dead, and I've spent 15 years taking care of what he loved, what he built, what he dreamed of for you. Mom, but maybe you're right. Maybe it's time for everyone to live their own lives. What does that mean? It means the keys stay with me. The ranch remains my responsibility, and you're free to build whatever life you want, somewhere else. Are you kicking me out? No, Nathan, I'm giving you exactly what you asked for. Your space, your independence, your own life, with Jenna. I heard her voice again in the background, sharp and angry. He must have covered the phone because the next words were muffled. When he came back on the line, his voice was tight. Jenna says you're being selfish, that you're clinging to material things instead of thinking about family. Nathan, I interrupted him, do you remember last night when you asked me to leave? What about it? There was a woman sitting near me. I didn't know her, but before I left, she took my hand and said something. She said, Ma'am, when a son chooses between his mother and his wife, he's already made his choice. You must respect that choice, but you must also respect yourself. Silence. This isn't a competition between you and Jenna, he said finally. No, sweetheart, it's not. Because in a competition, both sides want to win, and I don't want to compete anymore. I just want peace. I touched the keys around my neck, cold, heavy, full of history. The keys stay where they've always been, with me, until the right moment comes to pass them on. And when will that be? When you have a heart that deserves them. I hung up before he could answer. I sat in the kitchen for hours after that phone call. The coffee went cold in the cup. Afternoon shadows crept across the floor, stretching long and thin through the windows. I walked through the empty hallways, touching the adobe walls that my great-grandfather had built with his own hands. Every room held a memory. In the living room, I could still see Nathan at 6 years old, building block towers on the rug. In the study, I could see Robert at his desk, going over the ranch accounts by lamplight. And in Nathan's old bedroom upstairs, I could see the boy he used to be. It was 15 years ago when Robert died. Pancreatic cancer, fast and merciless. One day he was complaining about back pain, and 4 months later I was standing at his graveside in a black dress, holding Nathan's hand while the pastor said words I couldn't hear over the roaring in my ears. Nathan had just turned 12. Still a boy, really, with his father's dark hair and his grandmother's gray eyes. But on the day of the funeral, something changed in him. He stood straighter. His jaw set in a way that reminded me so much of Robert, it made my chest ache. The day after we buried his father, I found Nathan in the barn at dawn. He was trying to lift a saddle that was nearly as big as he was, struggling to get it onto his father's horse. "What are you doing, sweetheart?" I'd asked. "The south fence needs checking," he said, not looking at me. "Dad always checked it on Tuesdays." "Nathan, you don't have to—" "Yes, I do." He finally looked at me, and his eyes were dry but fierce. "I'm the man of the house now, Mom. I have to take care of things." I'd started crying then, which made him cry too, And we'd held each other in that barn while the morning sun came through the cracks in the walls. Two broken people trying to figure out how to keep going. But we did keep going. Together. Nathan learned everything. How to herd cattle, how to repair tractors when they broke down for the third time in a week, how to negotiate with suppliers when money was tight. He'd come home from school and head straight to the barn, doing his homework by flashlight while sitting on hay bales. On the nights when grief would hit me like a wave, when I'd wake up reaching for Robert's side of the bed and find it cold, Nathan would hear me crying. He'd come downstairs in his pajamas and make me tea, even though he was terrible at it and always put in too much sugar. "Everything's going to be okay, Mom," he'd say, his voice still high and boyish. "I promise." And somehow, he'd kept that promise. By the time Nathan was 16, he could run the ranch as well as any man twice his age. By 18, he was handling things I couldn't handle myself. When he graduated high school at the top of his class and got into college in the city, I'd been so proud I thought my heart might burst. "You should go," I told him, even though the thought of being alone terrified me. "Get your education. See the world beyond this ranch." But he'd come back every weekend. And when he graduated 4 years later with a degree in agricultural business, he didn't even hesitate. "Mom," he'd said, standing in this very kitchen with his diploma in hand, "my place is here, with you, on the ranch." I'd never been happier to hear anything in my life. For 10 years after that, we were a team again. I kept the books and managed the accounts. He handled the livestock and the day-to-day operations. In the evenings, we'd sit on the porch with coffee and watch the sun go down over the land our family had worked for 4 generations. "You know, Mom," he'd say, "one day my kids are going to grow up here, just like I did. They'll run through these same yards, learn to ride on these same horses." "I hope so, sweetheart. I hope you find a woman who loves this land as much as we do." He'd smile at that. "I will. I promise." But it didn't happen that way. Nathan met Jenna 2 years ago at a business conference in New York City. He'd gone to learn about new agricultural technologies, hoping to improve our operation. He came back with something else entirely. "Mom, I met someone," he told me over the phone, his voice electric with excitement. "Her name's Jenna. She's incredible. Smart, successful, beautiful. She works in business administration for a consulting firm." 3 weeks later, he brought her to the ranch. I heard the car before I saw it. A sleek silver sedan that looked out of place on our dusty gravel road. When Jenna stepped out, I understood immediately why Nathan was smitten. She was beautiful in that polished urban way, sharp cheekbones, honey-colored hair in a perfect bob, designer clothes that probably cost more than our monthly feed bill. But it was her eyes that I noticed most. Cool and calculating, even when she smiled. "Mrs. Clark," she said, extending a manicured hand. Her grip was firm, businesslike. "Nathan's told me so much about you. Call me Teresa, please. Welcome to the ranch." She looked around at the old house, the weathered barn, the corrals where horses stood swishing their tails in the afternoon heat. Her smile never wavered, but something flickered in those eyes. Disappointment? Assessment? "You live here?" she asked Nathan, as if she couldn't quite believe it. "We live here," he corrected her, and I heard the pride in his voice. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" "It's rustic," Jenna said carefully. "Very authentic." Over dinner that night, I learned more about her. She'd grown up in Brooklyn, in what she carefully described as modest circumstances. Her father had worked double shifts at a warehouse. Her mother cleaned house. Jenna had put herself through community college, then transferred to a state university, working 3 jobs to pay tuition. "I know what it's like to worry about money," she said, her fingers wrapped around her wine glass. "To lie awake at night wondering if you'll make rent. I promised myself I'd never live like that again." There was something raw in her voice when she said it, something that made me soften toward her despite my instincts. "That takes real strength," I said. "You should be proud." "I am." She looked at Nathan, then around the kitchen. "And I'm always looking for opportunities to build security. Real security. That word, opportunities, should have warned me. After that first visit, things began to change. Slowly at first, then faster. Nathan started coming home late from dates in the city. When he was at the ranch, he was distracted, always on his phone. The easy conversations we used to have over morning coffee became shorter, more strained. "Jenna has some ideas about the ranch," he said one morning, about 3 months after they started dating. "She thinks we could expand, maybe diversify our income streams." "What kind of ideas?" "Well, the land is beautiful. We could rent it out for events, weddings, corporate retreats, that kind of thing. Jenna says there's a huge market for rustic venues." "Nathan, this isn't a business, it's our home." "It can be both, Mom. We have to be realistic about the future." Realistic. He'd never used that word before. Over the next year, as their relationship got more serious, I watched Jenna work. She was subtle about it. I had to give her that. She'd walk through the house with her phone, taking pictures she claimed were just for memories. She'd ask casual questions about property values, inheritance laws, maintenance costs. She'd suggest little changes. "This room would be perfect for a bridal suite," or "You could knock out this wall and create such an open concept." And Nathan, my Nathan, started echoing her words. "Mom, maybe we should think about modernizing the kitchen." "Mom, wouldn't it make sense to paint the exterior a more contemporary color?" "Mom, Jenna thinks." Jenna thinks. Jenna says. Jenna believes. The proposal came last spring. Nathan took her to the highest point on the ranch, where you can see for miles in every direction, and asked her to marry him under the oak trees my grandfather planted. I was happy for him. I was. But when he brought her to the house that evening, flush with excitement, and Jenna looked at me with those cool eyes and said, "I'm going to be part of this family now, Teresa. Part of this legacy." Something in my gut twisted, because the way she said legacy sounded an awful lot like asset. 3 days after Nathan threw me out of his wedding, after that terrible phone call about the keys, I did something that went against every instinct I had. I called him back. "Nathan?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. Can we talk? Not over the phone. Come home. Let me make dinner for you. You and Jenna. I want to start over." The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought he might hang up. "I don't know if that's a good idea, Mom." "Please, sweetheart, let me make this right. Let me get to know her better. Maybe I haven't been fair to her." The words burned my mouth like acid, but I said them anyway. Because that's what mothers do. We swallow our pride. We bend until we nearly break. We do whatever it takes to keep our children close. Another pause. I heard muffled voices. Jenna's high and sharp, Nathan's lower, pleading. Finally, "Okay, we'll come tomorrow, around 7. "Perfect, I'll make your favorite, meatloaf and apple cobbler." "Sounds good, Mom. See you tomorrow." I hung up and immediately wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake. But I spent the entire next day preparing anyway. I made the meatloaf the way Nathan loved it, with a hint of Worcestershire sauce and a brown sugar glaze. I baked the apple cobbler using my mother's recipe, the one Nathan used to beg for when he was little. I set the dining room table with the good china, the embroidered tablecloth, the silver candlesticks we only used on special occasions. I wore a simple beige dress, nothing flashy, nothing that could steal anyone's spotlight. The keys hung around my neck, hidden beneath the collar. They arrived right at 7. I heard Nathan's truck on the gravel drive and my heart jumped like I was a teenager waiting for a first date. Pathetic, I thought. But I couldn't help it. Nathan got out first. He wore a white button-down shirt and dark jeans, his hair freshly cut. He looked handsome. He looked like a stranger. Jenna emerged from the passenger side in a wine-colored dress and heels far too high for ranch life. She carried a designer bag on one arm and her phone in the other hand, checking it even as she walked toward my door. "Good evening, Teresa," she said with a smile that looked practiced in mirrors. "Thank you for having us." "Of course, I'm so glad you came." Nathan leaned in and kissed my cheek. The gesture was quick, mechanical, like checking a box on a list of obligations. "Smells amazing, Mom. Your favorite. Come in, both of you." They settled in the living room while I finished in the kitchen. Through the doorway, I could hear them talking in low voices, Jenna's occasional laugh that sounded like breaking glass. When I came back with iced tea, Jenna was taking pictures of the living room with her phone. "The decor is so interesting," she said, not looking up. "Very historic. The house is 120 years old. My great-grandfather built it when he bought this land." "Wow, it definitely has character." She tapped her screen a few times. "I'm just sending some photos to my cousin. She loves vintage style." Vintage, as if my life was a Pinterest board. "Dinner's ready," I said. "Come to the dining room." We sat at the long oak table that had hosted 4 generations of family meals. Nathan took his usual seat on my right. Jenna sat across from him, still glancing at her phone. I served the plates carefully, making sure everything looked perfect. "Enjoy." Nathan took a bite of the meatloaf and closed his eyes. For just a second, he looked like my boy again. "God, Mom, nobody makes meatloaf like you." The compliment warmed me from the inside out. "I'm glad you like it, sweetheart." Jenna took a small, delicate bite, chewed slowly, set down her fork. "It's good," she said. "Though I can't eat too much seasoning. It bothers my stomach." "There's hardly any seasoning in it, but I can make you something else if—" No, it's fine. I'll just eat what I can." The wall clock ticked loudly in the silence that followed. I took a breath and plunged in. "I wanted you both to come tonight because I need to apologize." Nathan looked up. So did Jenna. "I was unfair at the wedding. Unfair to both of you. This is your life, your marriage, and I need to learn to respect that." The words felt rehearsed because they were. I'd practiced them in the mirror that morning. Jenna's smile turned genuine for the first time. "Thank you, Teresa. That means a lot. To both of us." Nathan reached across the table and took my hand. "Mom, I went too far too. I shouldn't have yelled at you like that, especially not in front of everyone." "It's done," I said. "The important thing is moving forward." "Exactly." Jenna lifted her tea glass. "To new beginnings, to family." We toasted like a normal family, like nothing had ever been wrong. After dinner, while I was serving the apple cobbler, Jenna stood up. "Excuse me, I need to use the restroom." "Second door on the left." She disappeared down the hallway. Nathan and I were left alone. He looked at me with something like relief in his eyes. "Thank you for doing this, Mom. I know it wasn't easy." "Nothing about loving you has ever been easy, sweetheart. But it's always worth it." He smiled, really smiled, and for a moment I thought maybe everything would be okay. We talked while Jenna was gone. He told me about their honeymoon plans, about Jenna's new position at a consulting firm, about the apartment they were renting in the city. Everything sounded perfect. Too perfect. Jenna was taking a long time. "Is she okay?" I asked. "Probably just touching up her makeup. You know how women are." I stood. "I'll check on her." The hallway was empty. The bathroom door stood open, light off. "Jenna?" No answer. I walked further down the hall, past Nathan's old bedroom, past the guest room. The door to Robert's study was ajar, just an inch, but it had been closed when I'd checked that morning. I always kept it closed. I pushed it open. Jenna stood with her back to me, phone raised high, taking pictures of Robert's desk. As I watched, she pulled open the top drawer, photographed the contents, then moved to the next drawer. "Jenna." She spun around, and for half a second her face went completely blank with shock. Then she recovered, plastering on that practiced smile. "Oh, Teresa, you scared me." She laughed, high and nervous. "I'm so sorry. I saw this room and it looked so interesting. All these old things. Is this your husband's study?" It was. "I'm sorry." She slipped her phone into her pocket. "I shouldn't have come in here. It's just, everything is so fascinating. I love vintage." There was that word again. "This room is usually locked," I said carefully. "The door was open. I thought it was okay." She moved toward me, still smiling. "You have such beautiful things. Real antiques. Let's go back to Nathan." "Of course." We walked back to the dining room together. Jenna sat down as if nothing had happened, launching into a story about a client at work. Nathan laughed at all the right moments. but I wasn't listening anymore. We finished dessert with small talk. Jenna complimented the house 3 more times. Nathan talked about coming back to help with maintenance work. They left at 10. Nathan hugged me at the door, a real hug this time, warm and solid. Thanks again, Mom. This meant a lot. Anytime, sweetheart. You're always welcome here. Jenna hugged me too, her perfume overwhelming and expensive. Thank you for giving us another chance, Teresa. It means everything. I watched them drive away, watched the taillights disappear into the darkness. Then I went straight to Robert's study. The room looked the same at first glance, but I knew every inch of this space. I'd cleaned it weekly for 15 years, never moving anything, keeping it exactly as Robert had left it. And now, small things were different. The papers on the desk had been shifted slightly. The middle drawer wasn't quite closed all the way. I opened the main drawer where Robert kept important documents. The property deeds were there. The will, land surveys, tax records. Everything seemed in order. Then I opened the small drawer on the right side, the one where Robert had kept personal items. The yellow envelope was gone. My hands started shaking. I searched every drawer, every shelf, behind the books, under the desk mat. Nothing. The envelope had been there 3 days ago when I'd checked. I'd been checking it regularly since Robert died, making sure it was safe. Inside had been a letter Robert wrote to me just weeks before the cancer took him. A letter he'd made me promise to keep sealed unless someone ever tried to take the ranch away from me. If that day ever comes, he'd said, his voice already weak, you read this letter. You'll know what to do. I'd never opened it, never needed to, until now, and now it was gone. I sank into Robert's chair, my chest tight with a fear I couldn't name. Jenna had been in here for at least 10 minutes. Long enough to search, long enough to find, long enough to take. I touched the keys around my neck and understood with sudden, terrible clarity. This wasn't about updating furniture or modernizing the ranch. This was something else entirely. Something calculated. Something planned. I was being studied, measured, and someone was determining how much longer I would be an obstacle to their plans. I sat in the dark study for a long time, Robert's empty chair creaking beneath me, and felt the weight of what was coming. The war hadn't started tonight. It had started 2 years ago, the moment Nathan brought Jenna home. I just hadn't known I was fighting yet. The call came 3 hours after I left the restaurant. I was in the garden, hands deep in soil, trying to find peace among my mother's roses when my phone rang. Nathan's name lit the screen. What the hell did you say to Jenna? His voice was pure fury. She came home crying, said you called our marriage temporary, that you insulted everything she's trying to build. I simply told her the ranch isn't for sale. She was trying to help, trying to find a solution that works for everyone. And you threw it in her face like she's nothing. Nathan, no, Mom, I'm done making excuses for you. Jenna's right. You're so stuck in the past, you can't see what you're doing to this family. What I'm doing? Yes. You're alone in that house with ghosts and memories, and you're dragging me down with you. We've tried everything. We've been patient. We've tried to include you, but you don't want solutions. You just want control. The word hit like a slap. That's not true, isn't it? Dad's been dead for 15 years, Mom. 15 years. And you're still living like he's going to walk through that door tomorrow. You need help, professional help. There it was, Harold's warning coming true. I'm perfectly healthy, Nathan. Are you? Because from where I'm standing, this obsession with the ranch, this refusal to accept reality, it's not normal. Maybe you should talk to someone, a therapist, maybe even a doctor who can evaluate whether you're still capable of making these kinds of decisions. My blood ran cold. You want to have me declared incompetent. I want you to get help before you destroy what's left of our relationship. His voice cracked. I'm building a life, Mom, with Jenna, and soon we'll have a family. I can't keep choosing between you and my wife. I won't. I've never asked you to choose. Yes, you have, every single day. He took a shaky breath. Here's the truth. Either you work with us or you lose me. Those are your options. Because I'm done, Mom. I'm done begging. I'm done fighting. Give me what's legally mine, or accept that you don't have a son anymore. Nathan, please! The line went dead. I stood there in the garden, phone in hand, surrounded by roses that had bloomed for 40 years, and felt my world cracking apart. I didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, I called Dr. Sarah Martinez and scheduled every test imaginable. Then I drove to First National Bank and opened a safety deposit box, storing Robert's letter alongside copies of every important document. 3 days later, Dr. Martinez handed me a sealed envelope. Teresa, for the record, you're in excellent health. Cognitive function above average for your age. No signs of impairment whatsoever. Thank you, Sarah. That afternoon, I met with Harold again. If they take this to court, I said, I want to be ready. We spent hours preparing documentation, reviewing strategy, building my defense. You're protected legally, Harold said. But Teresa, this is going to hurt. Are you prepared for that? No, but I don't have a choice. 3 weeks later, I heard vehicles on the drive. 3 of them. Nathan's truck, Jenna's sedan, a black SUV I didn't recognize. They came to the door like an invasion force. Nathan in a suit, Jenna in designer gray, 2 lawyers with briefcases. I let them in because what choice did I have? We assembled in my living room like opposing armies. Mrs. Clark, Attorney Williams began, my client wishes to exercise his rights as co-owner. We've reviewed the will. While you maintain administrative control, there's a clause allowing asset division if current management is deteriorating property value. This ranch is in perfect condition. Economically, it's worthless. No income, no productivity. It's losing value. He placed documents on my coffee table. We're prepared to petition the court for forced division and sale. On what grounds? On the grounds that your management is economically unsound, and in that process, many factors would be examined. Your age, your isolation, your refusal to accept reasonable proposals. He paused meaningfully. A court might question your capacity to make rational decisions. I have medical certification, obtained recently, which might seem suspicious, as if you were preparing to defend yourself. I stood. Get out. Mom, Nathan started. I said get out of my house. Jenna stood too, one hand moving to her stomach, a deliberate gesture. Teresa, I'm 3 months pregnant. You're going to be a grandmother. Don't you want to be part of your grandson's life? The world tilted. What? Nathan finally looked at me, and his eyes were red, exhausted. It's true, Mom. That's why we need to think about the future, about providing for our child. You didn't tell me, I whispered. Why would I? You've been so busy fighting us. You haven't even asked about our lives. The words cut deep. Congratulations, son. Truly. Then understand, this isn't about you and me anymore. It's about my child. Your grandson deserves better than parents fighting over property. I reached up and touched the keys around my neck. Give me the keys, Mom, Nathan said quietly. Then louder. Give me the goddamn keys! His shout echoed through the house. These keys are not your future, Nathan. They're your past. Until you understand the difference, you won't have them. His face contorted with rage and pain. Then this is over. I don't have a mother. Nathan, please, prepare the papers, he told his lawyers. We're going to court. I want division of assets. I want to force sale of my share. And I want her out of this house. He walked out without looking back. I stood in the doorway, keys clutched in my hand, watching them leave. Then I closed the door and finally let myself cry. 2 months later, the lawsuit papers arrived. Harold reviewed them grimly. This will take years and cost a fortune, he said, but we can win. Legally, yes, but emotionally, I shook my head. I've already lost. That night I sat on the porch until dawn, watching stars fade into morning. Then I called Harold. I want to make a new will. Teresa, are you sure? Completely. At his office, I dictated my final wishes. The ranch remains under my control for life. Upon my death, it transfers to a family trust that cannot be sold or divided for 50 years. Nathan receives 50% of profits only if the property is used for cultural or educational purposes, never purely commercial. If he contests this will or attempts to sell, he loses everything to a foundation protecting historic American ranches. Harold looked at me for a long time. You know what this means? It means no one wins this war. Not him, not me, but the land will. I signed the documents, had them notarized, sealed them. 2 weeks later, Nathan found out. He called at midnight, drunk, crying. How could you do this to me? How could you take away my inheritance? I didn't take it from you, Nathan. I protected it from yourself. You're a selfish woman. No, my love. I'm a mother who loved you too much to let you destroy what your father built. He hung up and didn't call again. I lived alone on the ranch, tending the land, watching sunsets, waiting without expecting. Then Harold visited with news. Nathan and Jenna separated. The divorce finalized last week. The room spun. What happened? When she didn't get the ranch, she started looking elsewhere. Nathan found her with another man, Marcus Hartwell, a hotel magnate. She has full custody of their son, Robert. Nathan gets supervised visits twice a month. Where is he? Living in a motel. Lost his job. Drinking too much. My heart shattered and reformed simultaneously. Why hasn't he called? Pride. Shame. Maybe both. 3 weeks later, I saw Jenna in town, laughing in a restaurant with her wealthy new husband. She waved at me like we were friends. I didn't wave back. On a December morning, the doorbell rang at dawn. Nathan stood on my porch, thin, bearded, broken, but sober. Mom, he whispered, I'm sorry. I opened my arms and he collapsed into them, crying like the boy he'd once been. We sat in the kitchen. I made coffee, the French roast he loved. We watched sunrise through the window without speaking. Finally, the keys were always yours, Mom. I was a fool. You were manipulated. I chose to be manipulated. I chose wrong. His voice broke. I've lost everything. My son only knows me as a stranger. Jenna's already replaced me. I destroyed us. Not everything. You still have me. Why? After what I did? Because that's what mothers do. We don't stop loving just because you made mistakes. Nathan lives in town now, works at a mechanic shop, visits every weekend. He's sober. He's learning. I modified the will one final time. When I die, Nathan inherits the full ranch, but only if he proves for 10 consecutive years he can protect it without selling. If he fails, it goes to his son Robert when Robert turns 25. Can I do it? He asked when we signed the papers. I don't know, but I'm giving you the chance to try. Last month, Jenna finally let Robert visit the ranch for summer. He's 5 now, with Nathan's dark hair and his great-grandfather's gray eyes. I watched him run through the yards where his father ran, climb the same trees, sit on the porch with hot chocolate, and I understood why it was all worth it. Grandma, he asked, will you tell me about the horses? Of course, sweetheart. Nathan watched us from the porch, tears streaming down his face, finally understanding what he'd almost destroyed. That evening, after they'd gone back to town, I sat alone with my coffee and Robert's letter, reading it one more time. You are the guardian. You are the door. I touched the keys around my neck. Still there, still mine, still heavy with history and responsibility. Someday I'll pass them to Nathan. When he's ready. When he understands they're not property but sacred trust. When he can teach his son what his great-grandfather knew. That some things are worth more than money, that land without legacy is just dirt, that family without honor is just biology. But not yet. For now, I'll keep watch, keep the land, keep the faith, because that's what guardians do. I learned something in these years of war and silence and slow redemption. Life doesn't give us the endings we want. It gives us the endings we earn. Jenna earned her loneliness, chasing the next opportunity, the next man, the next dollar, never understanding that what you grasp too tightly always slips away. Nathan earned his pain and his second chance, learning the hard way that some mistakes cost everything but teach you who you really are. And I earned my peace, not by winning, not by revenge, but by standing firm when everything in me wanted to give in, by choosing dignity over comfort, by protecting what mattered even when it cost me everything I loved. The keys hang around my neck, cold metal against warm skin, and I am not afraid anymore. Not of loneliness, not of death, not of the future. Because I know now what Robert knew, that true love isn't holding on or letting go. It's knowing the difference. And I finally do.